By noon, the sun was so bright it made every window in the apartment building shine like a mirror, but I still saw her tears clearly. I should have looked away. A decent man would have closed the curtain, stepped back, and pretended he had not seen his beautiful neighbor standing alone in her kitchen with one hand over her mouth and the other gripping the edge of the sink like the whole world was trying to pull her down. But I didn't move. And then, as if she felt my eyes from across the narrow courtyard, she slowly turned her face toward my window. Our eyes met. For one frozen second, I thought she would scream, shut the curtains, or hate me forever. Instead, she opened her window with trembling hands, looked straight at me, and said words I would never forget, "Come help me." Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that can happen when one human being chooses not to look away, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Asian Anesthry for more emotional stories that remind us what it means to care. My name is Ayan Mir, and at 34, I had become very good at disappearing while still being alive. I lived on the 4th floor of an old apartment building in Lahore, in a unit where the paint peeled near the windows and the fan clicked like a tired clock. Every morning, the city woke loudly beneath me, with rickshaws coughing in the street, vendors calling out fresh fruit prices, schoolchildren dragging heavy bags, and sunlight spilling over balconies filled with drying clothes. But inside my room, life had become strangely quiet. I worked from home as a freelance translator, barely spoke to anyone, and ordered most of my groceries online. After my younger brother Sammy died in a motorcycle accident 2 years earlier, something inside me had locked itself away. My mother said grief had made me old. My father said nothing, which hurt more. I had stopped visiting friends because their laughter felt like a language I no longer understood. Across the courtyard lived the woman everyone in the building noticed but no one really knew. Her name, I later learned, was Meher Jahan. She had moved in 3 months earlier with a little boy who wore red sneakers and carried a plastic dinosaur everywhere. In the daytime, I sometimes saw her watering the small basil plant on her kitchen windowsill, or hanging tiny shirts in the sun, or wiping the glass with the careful patience of someone trying to keep one small corner of life clean. She was not beautiful in the polished way of magazines. Her beauty felt quieter, heavier, like a song heard through a wall. She had tired eyes, graceful hands, and a smile she used rarely, as though every smile cost her something. That morning had started like any other. The sun was high, the courtyard was bright, and I sat near my window with a cup of tea growing cold beside my laptop. I was supposed to be translating a business document, but my mind kept drifting. Then I heard a sharp crash from across the courtyard. Not loud enough for the whole building, but loud enough for someone already listening to life through walls. I looked up and saw Meher in her kitchen, frozen beside broken glass scattered across the floor. At first, I thought she had simply dropped a plate. But then I noticed the fear in her posture. Her shoulders were tight, her lips moving without sound. The little boy was nowhere in sight. I told myself not to stare. I told myself people deserved privacy, especially pain. But she suddenly bent down, picked something from the floor, and pressed it to her chest. It looked like a small inhaler. Then she turned toward the hallway behind her and called out, but I could not hear the words. I saw her face change. Panic entered it like a storm. She ran out of view, then came back seconds later carrying her son in her arms. His red sneakers dangled motionless. My body moved before my mind did. I knocked over my chair, grabbed my keys, and ran. Down the stairs, across the courtyard, up the opposite staircase, my heart hammered so loudly I could hear it in my ears. By the time I reached her door, it was already open. Meher stood there barefoot, her dupatta slipping from one shoulder, tears on her face, her little boy limp against her chest. She did not ask who I was. She only said that his breathing had become strange, that the inhaler was empty, that her phone had fallen and cracked, and that she did not know what to do. The boy's name was Ryan. He was 5. His lips had a faint bluish tint, and his chest moved in shallow, frightening pulls. I had not held a child since Sammy's funeral, when my cousin's baby had reached for my collar and I had nearly broken down. But that day, in the burning brightness of noon, there was no space for my fear. I took Ryan carefully, told Meher to bring any medical papers she had, and ran back down with her beside me. The street outside was crowded, cruelly normal. A fruit seller argued over change. A man laughed into his phone. A motorbike honked at us as if our emergency was an inconvenience. We found a rickshaw near the corner. I shouted the name of the nearest clinic, and the driver, an old man with silver eyebrows, looked at Ryan once and drove like every second belonged to him personally. Meher sat beside me, gripping her son's foot and whispering prayers under her breath. I wanted to say something comforting, but comfort felt too small. So I held Ryan upright, remembered the breathing techniques a doctor had once explained for Sammy's asthma, and kept telling the boy to stay with us, though I did not know if he could hear me. At the clinic, everything became white walls, hurried footsteps, and the smell of antiseptic. A nurse took Ryan from my arms. Meher tried to follow but nearly collapsed, and I caught her by the elbow. For 10 terrible minutes, we stood outside the treatment room listening to muffled instructions. Meher did not cry loudly. She cried like someone who had learned to hide even from sorrow. She told me in broken pieces that Ryan had asthma, that his attacks had been controlled, that she had planned to buy a new inhaler after lunch, that she had been waiting for money from a tailoring job. Every sentence carried guilt, and I recognized that guilt too well. Grief had taught me how people punish themselves for not predicting the impossible. When the doctor finally came out, he said Ryan was stable. The attack had been serious, but we had brought him in time. Meher covered her face and sank into the plastic chair. I sat beside her without speaking. For the first time in 2 years, my silence did not feel empty. It felt useful. It gave someone room to breathe. That day should have ended there, with gratitude and awkward goodbye. But life does not always close its doors so neatly. The clinic bill was more than Meher had in her purse. She searched through folded notes with shaking fingers, embarrassment burning across her face. I paid the remaining amount before she could protest. She looked at me then, not with the soft gratitude people show in movies, but with the wounded pride of someone who had fought too long to accept help easily. She promised she would return every rupee. I told her she could, if it helped her heart rest. She almost smiled. Over the next week, sunlight seemed to change between our windows. Before, the courtyard had felt like a distance. Now it felt like a bridge. Meher sent Ryan over one afternoon with a small steel bowl of kheer, still warm and scented with cardamom. He stood at my doorway holding his dinosaur and announced that his mother said thank you but also said she was not weak. I laughed for the first time in months, a real laugh that startled me. I told him his mother was clearly stronger than both of us. He considered this seriously, then asked if I had cartoons on my laptop. Slowly, unwillingly, I became part of their daytime world. I helped carry grocery bags. I fixed the loose hinge on her kitchen window. I brought asthma medicine from the pharmacy when Ryan had a cold. Meher stitched clothes for women in the neighborhood, sitting near the window in the afternoon light, her sewing machine humming like a small engine of survival. She had left an unhappy marriage, though she did not tell me everything at once. Her husband, Tamor, had not wanted a sick child, not wanted bills, not wanted responsibility. He had wanted obedience, silence, and a wife who never asked why there was no money for medicine but always money for his habits. One morning, after he had shouted so loudly that Ryan hid under a table, Meher packed 2 bags and left. Since then, every day had been a battle disguised as routine. I told her about Sammy on a Thursday afternoon while helping Ryan build a cardboard fort near the window. I did not plan to. The word simply came out when Ryan asked if I had a brother. I said yes, then corrected myself and said I had. Meher looked at me with the kind of attention that does not interrupt pain. So I told her about the accident, about arriving at the hospital too late, about the helmet Sammy had not worn because he was only going nearby, about how I had missed his last call because I was angry over something stupid. The shame of that missed call had lived under my skin for 2 years. Meher listened, then said grief is a room we think we are locked inside, until one day someone knocks from the other side. I looked at Ryan, laughing inside his cardboard fort, and wondered if that was what had happened. Maybe Meher had opened her window, but maybe she had also opened something in me. Then suspense returned on a bright Monday morning, when Tamor appeared. I saw him first from my window. A tall man in a pressed shirt, standing outside Meher's door with impatience in every line of his body. He knocked once, then harder. Meher opened the door only a little, but he pushed it wider with his hand. I could not hear everything, but I saw Ryan retreat behind his mother. I saw Meher's face become pale and controlled. I saw Tamor point inside, then toward the stairs, as if claiming ownership over air, walls, and people. My chest tightened. For a moment, I was back in my old life, watching disaster from a distance, frozen by the fear of doing the wrong thing. Then Meher glanced toward my window. Not helplessly. Not dramatically. Just once. And that was enough. I crossed the courtyard again, but this time I did not run in panic. I walked with purpose. Other doors opened as voices rose. Mrs. Parveen from the second floor peered out. The fruit seller outside paused near the gate. Tamor turned when I reached the landing and asked who I was. My hands were trembling, but my voice did not. I said I was a neighbor, and neighbors come when they hear shouting. Meher stood straighter beside me. Something shifted then. Not because I was brave, but because silence had broken. Mrs. Parveen came up the stairs. Then the watchman. Then 2 more residents. Tamor looked around and realized the walls were no longer protecting him. They were witnessing him. He left with threats, but he left. After that day, the building changed. People who had ignored Meher began greeting her. Mrs. Parveen offered to watch Ryan during clinic visits. The watchman kept an eye near the entrance. A schoolteacher on the first floor helped enroll Ryan in a nearby kindergarten with a fee concession. Kindness, I learned, is rarely one grand act. It is more often a chain reaction. One person opens a window. Another opens a door. Soon, light enters places that have been dark for years. Months passed in golden daytime scenes. Ryan's health improved. Meher's tailoring work grew after women in the building began recommending her. My own room changed too. The curtains stayed open. My cold tea was replaced by shared lunch sometimes, by Ryan's drawings taped to my wall, by Meher's basil plant cuttings growing in an old mug on my sill. I still missed Sammy. I still heard his laugh in certain streets and felt pain catch me unexpectedly. But grief no longer owned every corner of me. It had to share space with new sounds, new duties, new reasons to wake up. One afternoon, almost a year after the day of the window, our building held a small celebration in the courtyard because Ryan had won a storytelling prize at school. He stood on a plastic chair under the bright sun, wearing his red sneakers, and read from a paper about heroes. He did not write about superheroes or kings. He wrote that a hero is someone who comes when you call, even if they are scared. Meher cried quietly while smiling. I looked away, not because I wanted privacy this time, but because my own eyes had filled. Later, as the sun lowered but the day still held its warmth, Meher stood beside me near the courtyard gate. She said she used to think needing help meant she had failed. I told her I used to think being alone meant I was protecting myself. We both smiled, because life had proved us wrong in the gentlest, hardest way. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who may be silently struggling, comment your feelings below, and subscribe to Asian Ancestry so more stories of kindness and healing can reach the people who need them. Special request, comment, I will not look away, if you believe even one act of kindness can change a life. That night, I stood by my window again, looking across the courtyard. Meher's kitchen light was on. Ryan was at the table, coloring. Meher was watering her basil plant, calm now, safe now, her face softened by the ordinary peace she had fought so hard to earn. She saw me and lifted her hand in a small wave. I lifted mine back. And I understood something I wish I had known when I lost my brother. Sometimes we are not saved by forgetting our pain. Sometimes we are saved when someone else's pain calls our name in the middle of an ordinary day, and we finally find the courage to answer.